Mr. Taibbi went on Chris Cuomo's show and said one of his great concerns was, quote, there's going to be an enormous temptation within the Trump government to do things like going after media organizations they don't like, and they can't do that. If they end up doing that, it's going to be a disaster. Has the disaster arrived?
I believe we're witnessing it right now. It's underway and speeding up.
What's the evidence of that?
Well, we talked already about the problems at the FCC. I think what we're seeing is incredibly powerful government officials using their power and their pulpit to go directly after news organizations. President Trump called for 60 Minutes to be, quote, terminated. Mr. Musk has gone after individual reporters who are trying to cover what Doge is doing. We don't know what Doge is doing. There's very little public information available, and yet reporters who dare to actually ask, who are these people? What are they doing? Why do they have access to our most important personal information? When that happens, here comes Mr. Musk, a government employee, but also the head of a social media company, coming after individual reporters. Those are some of the things that I'm incredibly concerned about. And there are many others who are saying they're going to come after journalists, including the nominee to head the FBI.
I think all four witnesses have spoken about the dangers of state censorship, but also the dangers of big tech censorship. With Elon Musk now appointed a special government employee, although he's not filled out his ethics forms or gotten a conflict of interest waiver. I hope, Mr. Chairman, we'll get a chance to work on that. But do we believe now that the dangers of state censorship have merged with the dangers of big tech censorship?
I'm obviously very concerned because it's one thing for the government to express its viewpoints and say, we wish you would do this or we wish you would do that. It's quite another for this kind of merger and full-on collusion happening. You know, we were worried about the government. This committee was very worried about the government in the previous administration putting pressure on Twitter. Now we have the head of X working inside the government to actually take apart government computer systems. That would seem to rise to a higher level of concern.
Right. Before, people were worried because some nameless, faceless bureaucrat would write a memo saying there's election disinformation, it needs to be corrected. And they thought that that was a First Amendment violation, although the courts ended up rejecting that. But in any event, they didn't like the government even warning of factual disinformation being warned of online. Now what we've got is the head of X, the owner of X, who controls all of that speech, being part of the government itself. And yet a lot of people aren't uttering a peep about that. Why is it?
Well, I have to ask, in some cases, where are they getting their news? Are they hearing about it? I have questions about that, but I think people are outraged. I see people every day here in Washington with signs saying, why is Elon Musk's hands on my data? I talk to my cab driver.
You know, I know there's millions of people in America outraged. I'm talking about my colleagues who couldn't stop talking about a handful of memos that were written to the social media about factual disinformation. They were upset about that. Now we've got an absolute merger of the social media state with the traditional governmental apparatus. Look, I'm not sure I understand what my colleague's position is on whether there should be free speech on social media sites or not. For several years, they campaigned to get sites like X and Facebook to remove fact-checking on their sites. It sounded like what they were saying is we want a radical, open, free market in speech, no censorship for anything, racism, sexism, anti-Semitism, fraudulent speech, whatever. Not because they endorsed that speech, but because what they were saying was, we just want a radically open free market. But then Elon Musk takes over X. He kicks off journalists who are critical of him or Donald Trump. He kicks off Texas Observer journalist Stephen Monticelli, Ken Klippenston of The Intercept, podcaster Rob Rousseau, progressive political groups he doesn't like. And so now X is flooded with all of the racist, anti-Semitic filth, the misogyny, all kinds of studies about how it's dramatically through the roof, and yet he's getting rid of political speech he disagrees with, and my colleagues have nothing to say about that. Is that the right approach to free speech if you think free speech is at stake on the social media?
Absolutely not, Congressman. I mean, as we've talked about repeatedly in this hearing, we need free speech for everyone. We need to protect free expression. And so if Elon Musk is doing something, this committee should be as concerned about it. If Elon Musk and Donald Trump are colluding to pressure media companies, they should be just as concerned, I would argue more concerned given the evidence than they have been in the many hearings covered here about low-level employees concentrating low-level staffers.
Mr. Taibbi tweeted to Elon Musk, he said, Elon, I've repeatedly declined to criticize you and have nothing to do with your beef with Substack. Is there a reason why I'm being put in the middle of things? He said, am I being shadow banned? His answer from Elon Musk was, you are dead to me. Please get off Twitter and just stay on Substack. I yield back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from California is recognized.